Hi, Craig Urquhart here, and welcome back to Berlin Conversations. This is the first conversation since COVID, and I'm very excited to have with me my friend Iddo by Shai, who is a wonderful pianist who I met here in Berlin, and I've had a great joy and honor to get to know him because I love his musicianship so much. Welcome, and so happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted being here.
Yeah, you're a wonderful pianist. I became aware of you through a friend of mine here in Berlin who gave me your recording of the Haydn sonatas, and then I subsequently discovered your recording of the Couperin, some, not all the repertoire, but a lovely selection of Couperin and your Chopin Mazurka recordings. And I just think they're wonderful, and you're a wonderful musician. And I was drawn to you because of Haydn, because I love Haydn's piano music.
Yeah.
And we'll come to that in a second.
Sure.
But
thank you very much for this. Oh,
it's great to have you here. Yeah. And so you're Israeli, correct? Were you born in Israel?
Yeah, born and raised. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so when did music start speaking to you as something that you felt very close to?
Well, would it be according to my version or my mom's version? So.
We can tell both. We all have our mother's versions.
And in Jewish culture, anyhow, it's only her version that counts.
Okay, but how about your version?
Yeah, well, probably it's similar to her, but I just don't remember that because she claims that the connection was made already when she was pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Okay.
Because she played the piano herself. My grandfather also, who grew up in Berlin, he wanted to be a pianist. He actually studied piano. He wanted to be a professional pianist. Mm-hmm. And the war cut that dream. And then he was hoping that my mom would turn to be a pianist. And she played in her youth, but she didn't follow it up professionally. And she stopped playing, and then she married, she had children. And when she was pregnant with me, I'm the youngest, she suddenly had the urge to play piano again. So she bought an upright piano, and during the whole pregnancy she was playing with a big enthusiasm and passion of coming back to music. And she claims that I was kicking in the same place in certain pieces. Wherever she came to that place, I would kick. So she was definitely convinced that I was attentively listening already.
Well, I'm not surprised. I think they know that people can feel the vibrations. And
nowadays there is more and more research about how much the fetus can already comprehend and listen. Mm-hmm. Of course, the mother's voice, but at that time the doctors told her that she's imagining. But she told me that when I was born, and she put me as a baby next to her, and she would play the same pieces in the same place where I would have kicked, I suddenly started to do that. Oh. So she was convinced I know that music. But basically music was always at home. My mom played the piano, my older sister played the piano before I started. So for me it wasn't something that was a discovery. It was just there the whole time, accompanying me. And it was, I don't even remember the time I started playing, because I know that I started to take lessons when I was 7 years old with a teacher. But much before this, I was just trying the piano. And funnily enough, I was very close to my sister. Mm-hmm. We were in the same room, and everything she learned, not only music, math, whatever she learned, she liked to play with me the game of teacher and student, and she taught me everything. And I was 3-4 years old, and apparently I was told that every time she came from a music lesson, she also taught me what she learned on the piano. So by the time I went to have my first lessons with a teacher, she told my mom, "You told me he never had lessons, and he has already like 3-4 years level." So it was my little sister who taught me, actually.
Oh, that's really wonderful. What a nice story.
Well, it was like a game between children. That's how I kind of studied it.
So, but when did you realize that it's something that you wanted to pursue on a very serious level?
It also wasn't really a decision, it was just a process, but quite quickly after I started taking proper lessons from a real teacher, I started already giving some concerts. And when I was 10 years old, because I studied in the north of Israel, which is quite remote, small town called Nazareth Elite, Upper Nazareth. And my conservatory was in a kibbutz nearby.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in Nazareth Elite, I had, my first teacher was actually excellent. She was Hungarian, because Israel is a melting pot of every community, and especially the small town where I grew up is well known to be an immigration city. So every few years the population changed. And she came from Hungarian school, and basically Bartók was the basis of my studies in the beginning, and with the Hungarian system of microcosmos. Yeah.
So did you study the microcosmos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I did. That was my system when I started.
Yeah, that's interesting. What an interesting way to begin.
Yeah, exactly. Which was very specific. But that was the beginning. And at the same time, I was also in the local conservatory in the kibbutz. And then at 10 years old, they told me that they want to give me a scholarship from the America-Israel Cultural Foundation that Isaac Stern created. But it was either just getting it and staying there, or auditioning and going to another teacher and in a more major conservatory where there was more competition. And my parents decided that, okay, that's the point. I think that was the first point we realized that, okay, there is a serious decision to be made here. It's not only for fun. And at 10 years old, I moved to a conservatory in Haifa with a teacher with whom I stayed for 8 years, Bracha Onan Margalit, who is the sister of Israel Margalit.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I studied with her, and on that same year I went and auditioned to, when I was 11, to the America-Israel Cultural Foundation, and I did win the scholarship, and ever since I was already in kind of a route of more professional way already.
Do you remember what you performed for that audition?
I remember I played an Israeli piece of Tzvi Avni, a sonata of Tzvi Avni. I remember it well because I also went to his home to have consultation with him about the piece, so that was very interesting.
So you were 11 working with a living composer.
Yeah.
That's quite a amazing
And he gave me
story.
other scores of his to study, and it was a very interesting encounter for me. And later on I met him in a few other junctions of my life, but that was really interesting. And I played, I remember also Debussy Etude.
An etude, okay.
Yeah, the Pour le degré chromatique.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah,
oh, God.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Probably I played it like twice as slow as it should be.
It's long, I'm sure it was musical. Yeah.
Hopefully. What else did I play there? I think also... I remember Grieg, not the lyrische, but there is poetische Tonbilder. Quite simpler but beautiful, gorgeous set of 6 small pieces. So that was kind of early on route to start really. I already gave my first recital at that time, and then 12 years old, I already played my first time with an orchestra, so things started to move from that point.
And then did you continued your studies?
Yes, I studied in Haifa, in the conservatory with Bracha Onan Margalit, and I was at that time already offered to go out of my home actually when I was 14 years old, because I went regularly to the Jerusalem Music Center for masterclasses. That's the place in Israel for getting masterclass with many, many wonderful pianists who passed there. Sadly, I missed the chance to study with great masters who came there before I was on the right age for it, but Rubinstein gave lessons there, and Gina Bachauer and everyone. It was, but I had wonderful lessons from many others. And I remember Peter Feuchtwanger coming, and so one of the also later on Murray Perai, I had wonderful lessons.
Oh, did you work with him?
Wonderful.
Incredible,
wonderful.
Yes.
But I remember I had a lesson with Boris Berman, and I was 14, and he told my parents that he would very much be happy if I come to the States to study with him and arrange a scholarship, meaning I would have been 15 years old when I moved already by myself. I think it was Yale where he was teaching?
Probably, yeah.
It was in Yale. So probably would have been a totally different life for me if I went there when I was 15 to Yale by myself. But my mom said that's too early, and she wanted to keep me at home more. And actually I'm very happy about that, not because one never knows what would have happened, but when I was 18 years old I met two very important mentors in my life, which would have not happened if I would have not stayed in Israel.
May I ask who they were?
Yeah, so first was, the first one even before my teacher was Alexis Weisenberg.
Oh, yes, okay.
Who came to give some master classes in Israel, and I played for him. I was 18, and there was an immediate click, and he told me that I should come to him to study privately, and since that time I've been 5-6 times in master classes in Engelberg in Switzerland, but also went to him regularly every year to his home to have lessons. So he was a very influential mentor.
That's
and
incredible.
The way he also taught was totally for me unique. I've never had that ever, not only because of the immense level as a person, as a musician. It was just incredible personality. But also the generosity and the way he invested his time in you. It's something that always stays for me unique. And in the beginning, I didn't understand how unique it is, but later on, when I had a bit more perspective, I told him, this is really unusual. And he told me, well, this is the way I studied with my teacher, Pancho Vladigerov. I didn't know otherwise. That's how he taught me, which means you would not come for a lesson of 1 or 2 hours. You would come for a few days and spend the whole day with him from morning till evening and speak about music, but about other things as well, and listen to recordings together, watch films together, speak about it, just spend a few whole days. The education was so much more broader than just having a music lesson on the piano. And that was a really super influential experience to study with him. And a couple of months later, after my encounter with him, I came to the age to start my studies in the music academy in Tel Aviv, and I went to Pnina Zaltzman. I chose her as my professor, and that was an immediate click as well. And for me, the most important teacher in my life. And she remains always. She passed away already almost now 16 years ago. It's crazy how time flies. But I was with her for 12 years. Since I started till she passed away. And she really transformed the way I was listening to music. But not only music, seeing life. She always said that she had glasses of looking at life through music. And when I met her, for me it was almost revolutionary to interpret every other thing I do in my own life through musical eyes. It was she was a very kind of a romantic figure, and her passion and adoration for music was a bit from another era. And she would describe to me when she got scores. She was studying with Cortot in Paris in the 30s.
Cortot, well.
Yeah, she was in the same class.
So I just love this line, of all these great teachers.
Yeah, with Pnina, it was, first of all, her personality was something also extraordinary. She was a fantastic pianist, very inspiring as a person, and a very, very, very wise and clever pedagogue also. So when I came to her, she only started to teach in her 60s, but when I came to her, she already had some kilometrage of teaching, and she was so sharp and so accurate about what she was saying, with a very high degree of intelligence. And she also had this phenomenal memory. And so for me, she was a dictionary for music school that didn't really exist anymore, because she studied before the war in Paris with Cortot and in the same class of Dino Lipati.
Oh,
And she started with Cortot studying when she was 8 years old. So she graduated the École Normale de Musique at 12. And then she had her premier prix in the conservatoire already at 14. So everything happened to her she was a real wunderkind. And she studied with Magda Taliaferro, but also Cortot sent her to study Baroque with Wanda Landowska in Saint-Leu. And then she had the most pushy mother, most, because, you know, we have a rich history of pushy Jewish mothers, but Ivry Gillis always told me they studied at the same time and were very close friends, and he always told me, I don't know whose mother was crazier, her or mine, hers or mine, because both were very pushy. And
it's not just
not only theirs.
Not only Jewish mothers.
Yeah, I can imagine. But her mother was something special. I mean, I can give hours only speaking about Pina's stories, but basically she always told me, Pina, the pianist she adored the most was Horowitz. First of all, because she thought he was the greatest, and secondly, he was the only one who said no to her mom. Because all the others couldn't resist. The mother insisted of any pianist who came to Paris who gave lessons to this child. So she had regular lessons with Rubinstein in Montmartre. She had lessons with Schnabel, with Friedman.
Incredible.
Everyone. And she was a musical dictionary because she has this phenomenal memory to remember every remark everyone ever gave her, and whatever she heard also Cortot giving in his class interpretation for the other pianists. So every scores I would bring her, she would just have all these examples of which one of them said what. And it was just an amazing gift. And this was the reason I stayed longer in Israel while most of my friends left either before the army time or just after to Juilliard or Europe. I tried to clinch as much as I could to stay in Israel and study with Pina because she was just a treasure. So I did my 3 army service, which wasn't always simple during giving concerts. But the advantage was benefiting from these lessons, which remains for me the core of my musical studies. Yeah.
That's incredible. And then when did you leave Israel to go to a larger stage?
Well, that was quite later on. I was already 27 years old. Actually,
but you'd been concertizing and things in Israel.
Yes, I was traveling all the time, but my basis was still Israel, which made also things...
But were you concertizing outside of Israel?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it made things a bit more complicated. Also, you know, flights from Israel, you always have to take more time. At that time, before 9/11 also...
I've done that, it took hours.
I mean, everywhere was so much faster in Israel. So it was a bit more complicated, but I enjoyed my time in Tel Aviv. I love the city. I love being with Pina. I went regularly to Switzerland to study with Alexis, and still did my music studies in the Tel Aviv Academy. And at the same time, I didn't have I wouldn't say I had an international career, but at the same time, I did perform once in a while in several concerts. But at some point, I felt, as a person, but also professionally for the career, that I should move out of Israel. And Pina was totally supportive of it. And Alexis told me that he doesn't recommend necessarily that I go to study in Paris, but I must go to live in Paris if I want to develop as a person.
That's interesting, yeah.
That was always, Alexis said, you have to live in Paris to develop yourself, in your view of life. And only after living there, I totally understand him. It's still a city that I feel very attached to. And I moved to Cité des Arts in Paris, and things happened very, very spontaneously. I knew almost no one. I just moved because I wanted to be in Paris.
That's how I felt about New York. Yeah.
And I didn't have any plan or anything. I didn't. I remember. Menachem Preslow, I just met him before that. I was in Ravinia Festival, having classes with them there, being in the academy, in the Steen Institute. And I told him I'm going to Paris, and he was super nice. He gave me some addresses of people he knew there. one of them, his student Alain Pianist, who thought maybe I should enter the troisième cycle in the CNSM with him. But I decided not to go into any institution, just go and live in Paris. And without any plan, things just happen naturally. There's a French pianist, Michel d'Alberto, who already heard me before and knew Plina very well. And he sent a very nice letter to René Martin, who is a very well-known French concerts organizer, festivals. He told me you should play in La Roque d'Enterrome, which is at that time I didn't even know what it is. I said okay, but it is the biggest piano festival in France and one of the biggest in the world. And he sent my recording, and then I got like 2 weeks later a letter from René Martin saying, "Can you play this July in our main stage?" And I said, "Fine, yeah." And everything just went very spontaneously, quickly like this. In France, I feel very lucky that I was embraced quite quickly there. I never felt.
Did you meet our mutual friend Ivry Gitlis during this time?
I met Ivry even before.
Okay.
Yeah.
You met him in Israel first?
No, actually not. The first time I met him was in my first ever trip to play in France, in Paris. That was in 2000. I won in Israel a competition called the Vendôme Prize of Alexis Gregory that he created. That was the first edition at that time, and the Israeli section I won then. And then there was a concert in Salle Cortot, which was my first ever trip to France, actually.
Well, okay.
And Plina actually told me, okay, I'm going to join you there because that's where I studied. So it was a very special, very special occasion to be joined by her in Paris together. It was very memorable. And I think the first spot we went together when I went with Plina in Paris, the first day, the first spot was Café Fleur with Ivry.
Oh gosh, that must have been fun.
Yeah, because they have been, I mean, they kept always in touch, but they have been, they were born the same year, they grew up together in Paris, they were very, very close, and they loved each other. So she told me, I'm going to meet Ivry, come and join me. So I was just a spectator in the side, both of them were exchanging memories, but I was very impressed by their encounter of Ivry. It's someone, I've never met anyone like him before.
No, he was one of a kind, there's no question about it. Yeah.
I never met anyone like him before, and I never met anyone like him after as well. So.
No, he was...
And later on, when I moved to Paris, of course, I renewed the contact, and we became very, very close friends. I can say that I've been, very, very close to him. So
now, did you meet Martha Argerich through Ivry, or did you? No. Because you work with Martha Argerich. You have.
We've been friends for a very long time, and I've been playing with her a few times.
Yeah. But I know they work together quite often.
Oh yeah, Ivry and Martha, it's like brother and sister.
Right,
they are like family. I mean, Ivry was Martha's older brother.
Yeah, right.
And very, very special connection. And of course, for me, that's one of the reasons I love Paris so much. It connects also with the people that you love. And Ivry, for me, now I'm a bit sad, I still love Paris, but I go to Paris and Ivry is not there, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, of course it
but
is.
when I lived there, it was Ivry and then Martha often there and meeting all together. I mean, all the people I love, the world's unite in a kind of a family way. And so that was very magical for me all these years in Paris. And Ivry, Martha, well, the first time I met her, probably she will not remember, is when she played in Israel and I was 19 or something like this, and I went backstage. Of course, I adored and admired her, and Plina knew her very well. So I went backstage with Plina to congratulate her, and again she chatted with Plina, and I was like a fly on the wall, like just admiring from the distance. But that was for me the first encounter. But later on, we actually met. A few years later, I went to the academy in Verbier in 2001. Okay. And that's where I really met her more closely, and I was part of the students, and Marta, in her very generous way, she always loves to communicate and connect with people. She's very shy as well, but once she's open, she's very warm. Very, very special, warm personality. So we spoke a bit with the students with her, and she said, "Why won't you come to a party in my?" She had an apartment there with all the musicians in the evening. So for her, there is no hierarchy, only the stars or something. It was a mix of all the biggest stars and the students all mixed together, because that's how she is, very natural. And for me, it was amazing. I mean, I remember listening to Steven Kovacevic and Lynn Harrell reading together a Brahms sonata, and Marta was reading, and everyone was playing together, and we students were just there listening to it. It was just magical.
It sounds wonderful. So what a memory.
That was, I mean, I'm always grateful for Verbier for this kind of, they did open that kind of window for students to encounter their heroes. And later on, when I moved to Paris, and I went to, after there was a beautiful concert of Marta with Nelson Frère in Gaveau. And actually Nelson I met also through La Roque d'Enterron. When I played there, Nelson played also, and we had the dinner after, and then he told me come to my place, and we became very friends as well. So it all connected, because Nelson and Marta also were like brother and sister, and they lived in front of each other. Actually, I was in Marta's place before I even knew that Marta was there, because Nelson was changing kitchens between the two when I went to Nelson. So it all kind of mixed together, and then when I saw them playing together in Paris, Marta, I told her that I'm in Paris now, and we kept more and more in touch, and we became very close friends as well. So all of these things were enabled because of the move to Paris, and that's why I'm so happy. You never know with your life what you do, but if I went to Yale, who knows? Maybe
what would have happened?
Maybe I would have stayed probably in the States all my life, and I wouldn't have that Paris period.
So now you're living in Berlin.
True.
And you have a wonderful house. You do, yeah. But why Berlin? Why? I mean, was it?
Well, partly because of the house.
Okay, that's a good reason.
Yeah, I kind of fell in love. Sometimes you fall in love with a person and you move a city for that. That's more common, actually. I fell in love with a ruin. Well, the truth is that I was already some years in Paris. I wanted to stay in Paris, but I needed a bigger place to have a piano. I was always practicing in Paris in other people's homes. I had the chambre de bonne without a piano. It was too small to accommodate a piano. Sometimes I played at halls. I had all these kind of agreements, but I felt I had more and more a stressful schedule. I started recording. I had these periods where I said, okay, now I have to have a few weeks of concentrating, of working day and night before a stressful period. And I found myself more and more going back to Israel to my parents to do this, because I couldn't do it in Paris. And I started to ask myself, this is not a constant solution if I have to go back to my parents in order to work. So I wanted to find a place of my own, a corner of my own, where I can have my own bubble and cocoon to, when I need to just shut the windows and work. And these conditions I couldn't find, sadly, in Paris. Paris was too expensive for a young pianist to find such a solution. And I was contemplating between a few other options. Also, I thought about Brussels. I have family there, where Marta was also staying at the time. Yeah. But also other musicians I knew. And I wasn't really sure about Berlin, but my sister, she's an artist, and she had she showed some of her works in Berlin. She knew the city much better than me. She told me, you should give it a chance. Let's go and check it out. And we had a trip here in the summer just to check some options. And to make the story shorter, because I could speak about it a long time, but somehow by total karma, I fell on this ruin. And when I saw it without even deciding beforehand. In 1 second, I decided this is the house where I'm going to live.
Oh, okay. It spoke to you.
Totally, totally. And luckily, I didn't.
Luckily,
know,
you saw it in the summer.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Even though it's such a beautiful place that even in the winter it has its own magic.
It has its special character.
But it was the most beautiful day of the summer. It was like a Walt Disney film, you know. It was perfect day. There were squirrels and rabbits and everything. It was like.
Well, I think we should explain that you have a house next to a
park.
Beautiful park. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It was a guardian of a park house, and it was still in ruin and graffiti, but all this beautiful, charming trees and animals around. I just felt like I'm in a fairy tale, and I said, okay, that's my place. And,
thank God you didn't see it in the gray of November.
Exactly, and thank God I didn't know what it means to renovate a Denkmalschutz, historical house.
Yeah, oh God, especially in Germany.
Exactly. It was hell on earth for 4 years it took. 2 years only to get the approvals signed, and constant daily work on that. In Germany, I had a very rough introduction entry, and I had to be very stubborn to continue till the end. I'm a bit stubborn, but yeah, before learning to say "Wie geht's dir," my first words in German were Nutzen, Lasten, Ausgleich, or Unbedenklichkeitsbescheinigung.
Okay.
So,
Got it. Okay.
It was very
but
strong.
Did you find the creative life here in Berlin?
Yeah, that's the main reason of attraction. I mean, I love my house, but I would not have chosen it if it was not a city I could feel connected to.
You recently performed with the Concerthaus Orchestra.
Yes. Yeah.
With Christoph Eschenbach, conducting,
Yeah.
And that was a big event for Ukraine, right?
Right, not only for Ukraine, but it was for refugees in general, but of course the emphasis on Ukraine right now. It's actually an idea I had for many years, since already Merkel gave the permission for the refugees from Syria to come in here. It's the International Rescue Committee. It's the biggest organization in the world to help refugees. And they were at the time also very active in Syria, Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, and in Germany. And they just opened a German office for it. The idea took a little bit of time till it materialized into a concert, but it happened also now with the context of Ukraine. And actually, many thanks to Christoph Eschenbach, because he was the one who put his weight to say this is something I'm interested to do. Of course, the Concerthaus Orchestra were very generous to give their orchestra and hall for free for this purpose. I'm happy it worked out, and we did it. It was a very special energy in the hall. We had half of the hall were Ukrainian refugees living in Berlin, which we invited, and many of them either never heard a classical concert in their life or didn't hear a concert since the war started, and they came here. And the excitement in the public was very, very evident. And even Christoph, after already conducting the first piece, he came out and he told me there is a very special energy tonight. And,
that's great.
It was. I'm very happy that it took place eventually. And in any case, this organization is something I've been following for years, and I want to continue following. By chance, not because of this, but I've been very much following them also because the president of the organization is a cousin of my mom, David Miliband. So I had always a personal also interest to see what he was doing there, and I learned more and more about what they were doing, and feel, of course, it's a very important cause because in a way it resonates and reflects the history of my own family. It was created in the 30s by Albert Einstein to help German Jews escape Germany. My grandfather grew up in Berlin, my other grandparents in Vienna, so they were exactly the kind of people this organization was created for. And after the war it became more international, and it helps now not only Jews, but it's the biggest one. It helps around 100 million refugees around the world right now. But yeah, for me also, of course, the history of Christoph. I mean, Eschenbach.
Christoph Eschenbach history.
He mentioned it a few times. That he himself is a refugee from that war, and so it resonates some important history of our personal lives. and sadly, it's more relevant than ever. I mean, our world
right now, what's going on is just madness. It's just
even now almost in the heart of Europe, and who knows where next. But I mean, our world is not a stable one right now, and actually knowing the activities of the IRC, they are expecting a huge, more major problem in the future now with the climate change as well, because that will create scales of refugees that we haven't been even imagining.
No, because of the water levels rising, the droughts,
or floods, or any kind of thing that can make millions of people to try and migrate, and
not just people, animals, and everything.
For sure, but they are taking care of humans. But of course, it covers everything.
It's going to be a disaster.
But it's this disaster, which we see already the beginning of it, will have major impact, and the work of the IRC will become a core element in our lives for sure. We will have to deal with this situation.
Do you have plans to do any more concerts for them?
We are hoping to do, yeah.
Good.
I'm in touch always with David Miliband to reflect about. There was an idea maybe to make something in Athens actually, but we are thinking to bring it to other places. I hope other people will want to, major venues or orchestra will want to do it, and we'll be happy to do that. Yeah.
Sounds like a really good project.
Well, it's
an important one too.
It's an important one. Yeah.
And you also have a music festival that you do in France, correct?
Yes, that's been something I've been.
I mean, I don't know when you have time to practice, but
I'm not practicing, so that's another problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, the festival was the element that took most of the time.
What's it called?
It's called Les Coups de Cœur à Chantilly, which means the heart. Coup de cœur, it's like heart. How do you say coup? When you hit something in a way. Yeah. In French, it means when you're totally fascinated with something, it's your coup de cœur. You're like you have a stroke of the heart or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Stroke, maybe not stroke.
Not a stroke.
Not a stroke. Not a stroke, but striking the heart or something. Like. It strikes your heart and means you're totally into it.
Yeah.
Sorry for my limited English. So le coup de cœur for us is a way to. It's in the Château de Chantilly, which is one of the most important monuments and chateaux in France. And not only the beauty of the chateau and the history of the Grand Condé, who was a cousin of Louis XIV, who lived there. And later on, also the last owner was actually the Duc d'Aumale, who was the son of the last king of France. So it's very related to the history of France, but also because the Duc d'Aumale in the 19th century was, at his time, the biggest art collector in the world. His own private collection is presented there, not allowed to be taken out. That's a contract that he did when he gave the place in the collection to the Institut de France. It is the second most important painting collection in France after the Louvre.
Wow. So this is a wonderful venue.
It's absolutely incredible. The architecture, but also the gardens. It was done by the same team like Versailles, Le Nôtre, Le Vaux, etc. But also the collection, which has the only place in France that has 3 Raphael and Botticelli and Poussin, Delacroix, Clouet. It's just extraordinary collection. So we are offering weekends, musical weekends, where the public can come and admire the collection, the architecture of the place, and at the same time discover. Every weekend is a focus on a very great musical personality, where they can, during the whole weekend, in different concerts, discover different aspects of this artist. So it's a bit more like a more intimate portrait than just going to one concert in Philanthropy.
Let's say last summer, who did you have?
So we had the last time now Marta Argerich, and with Marta it's every concert is just inspiring, but also her guests and friends. It fitted totally her spirit, this kind of what we want to do, because even in her regular concerts, one of the things Marta loves most is collaborating with her friends. And everything, life and music and family and friendship, it's always connected. She never separates. So for me it was not only that I admire her as a person, as an artist, it just fits perfectly for the vision of this festival. So we did a weekend with her friends. It was already the second time she came. Our first edition was during the COVID time, which was a double challenge, and we didn't want to miss that chance, even though at that time we only had a very limited amount of public allowed, so it wasn't even open for the wide public. But it was her 80th birthday, and we didn't want to miss that. And that was in June 2021. So we filmed it. It was broadcast on Mezzo and Medici TV, so the wide public could see it, but there was very few people in the hall. But we had a wonderful celebration with her and the family. So there were her daughters Annie Dutoit and Lida Chen, and all the friends of hers played with her. We had Misha Maisky, Maxime Vengerov, Gidon Kremer, Zhenya Kissin came, Renaud Capuçon. So it was really a very, very nice.
Lovely. Sounds like a great weekend.
It was a great weekend, and our first weekend we actually organized. So it wasn't a bad beginning for the festival.
I'm planning on coming this summer.
It's springtime.
I'm planning on coming. Yeah. You just have to remind me of the dates.
I will.
Yeah.
But I can tell already now that we are planning 2 weekends in the springtime. Our hope is to make in the future every springtime and every autumn 2 weekends, so for a year. And we're already planning now 2 weekends in April. 1st and 2nd of April will be around Maria João Pires.
Wonderful.
Who's another great pianist.
And you've been playing with her?
I'm going to play with her now. And
she's one of my favorite pianists
as well.
And she's so sensitive and
incredible
musician,
and person as well.
Yeah.
I must say.
I don't know her personally.
I discovered more in a personal way. Maria actually was a small gift of the COVID time that usually I was never giving myself time for breaks or voyages unless I was playing somewhere, and because all of that free time, Maria told me, why won't you come to Belgaísh for
that's in
for
Portugal, right?
It's in Portugal where she lives. I was in Lisbon. We met there, and she said, why won't you join us in Belgaísh, which is also a heavenly beautiful place where she lives. She created it in her own spirit. Her inspiration is everywhere there. It's in the countryside, and she transformed this compound for arts, beautiful space. It really you feel Maria in every rock and every. It's natural and authentic and beautiful and sincere. It's exactly as her music making herself, and very connected to nature and to the beauty of nature. And because of all that free time, I came for a few days that became eventually 2 weeks, and that was really a magical time to spend, thanks to COVID, and we had the chance to read some music together, and she was extremely generous to offer me if I would like to play together some duo programs. So this and next season we are planned to play quite a few times. The Mozart double concerto in January now.
In Leipzig with Christoph.
With Christoph Eschenbach
and the Gewandhaus.
Lovely. 12th and 13th of January, if someone is watching. And then later on we will do it in other venues, but also a recital program together, 4 hands. And she will come to, hopefully if all works well, to my festival in Chantilly. We are doing a weekend around her and her friends. And 2 weeks after her, we will have another musician I admire. It's Leonardo Garcia Alarcón, who is a wonderful clavecinist, but also, of course, mainly a conductor. He created Capella Mediterranea, Baroque ensemble, and he will come with Capella Mediterranea, and they will make Italian Baroque opera programs.
Oh, what a wonderful venue to do it in.
And in the Grande Écurie, which was from the time of Louis XIV, basically almost the same period these pieces were written. So architecture, music, everything will fit very beautifully. from the same aesthetics, and it will be our first time to make vocal music and Baroque music in this place. So that's another thing I'm very much looking forward to.
Wonderful.
And that will be mid-April.
And now, in terms of your own personal, musicianship, what is the repertoire that you're really drawn to? I mean, I know you love all the music in the world.
I do, and I must say...
but we all have composers that we feel...
More connected.
Not more connected, but we can do more honor to.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Where we feel that the language is natural, authentic. In any music we're playing, every phrase we can sit for months and think, how would that phrase go? But there are some composers where we feel more at home.
Mm-hmm. Like for you, Haydn, Couperin, Chopin, who else?
Well, Chopin was a composer I was immediately connected since I was a child.
Of course, yeah.
I think with Chopin it's always the case, the pianists who play Chopin, they feel immediately either they're very connected to it or they're not. I mean, I don't think it's in between with Chopin. It's really such an idiomatic language. And I know pianists who just feel Chopin is integral part of their body, they can't do without him, and some others who prefer to put it a little bit aside. So you have this kind of two genres of pianists.
Please don't introduce me to them.
I won't, but there are a few like that. Chopin was an immediate click, and later on, of course, when I started to study with Pina, it was only enhanced. Actually, it was one of our meeting points, because from the first time I came to audition for her and I played for her some Chopin, she immediately thought that I have a natural thing for it, and she herself was also a Chopin player basically, and studied with Cortot and Rubinstein.
Right, of course, yeah.
So she had a joke, like everything. She was a very funny woman. So she told me, "How come you have a natural thing for Chopin? You come from the Galilee. In the Galilee they have Debka, not Chopin." And another very funny joke was 1 or 2 years after I started studying with her, I won in Israel the Young Artist competition of the Israeli radio. So after I won that competition, they made an interview with me and with her, an article, because that was the major competition of that time there. And Pina was interviewed, and she said very nice things about me, and she said he was born with mazurkas in his stomach.
Okay. Well,
like the natural feelings.
Yeah.
And then probably the editor thought that it's a very nice, interesting, catchy phrase to sell. I don't know. So the title was "Born with mazurkas in his stomach."
Oh God.
And then Pina told me the day later, and I didn't even think it's bad, because for me, I love mazurkas, everything's fine. But she told me the day later with a cigarette, she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry for you. People will stay away from you now because they don't know what mazurkas is. They probably think you have a very serious disease."
That's funny. So, and you're drawn to Mozart and Schubert.
Mozart for sure.
Yeah.
Is, Schubert as well, but I think Mozart, since also very early age, I had a very, very strong connection.
Well, I would love to hear you play the A minor rondo. I'm not going to ask you to do it today because that wouldn't be fair, but I'd love to hear you play that. That's one of my favorite works of art. Yeah. Do you play Bach? Is that something?
And Bach as well. Yeah. I mean, in some way, I mean, I have so many loves in music, but somehow you touched, probably the three biggest for me would be Bach, Mozart, and Chopin. But after these, there are so many others.
Oh, there's so, yeah, of course.
I mean, if you adore Chopin, you have to be in love with Scriabin, because Scriabin himself was so in love with Chopin, and it's so addictive kind of music. But in Haydn, Mozart and Haydn, how can you love one and not the other? I mean,
of course,
Mozart himself was so much in love with Haydn music, and Haydn was so much admiring Mozart. And then Schumann, of course, and then all Baroque. Basically, I love also Scarlatti and Couperin, which is a big.
Have you recorded Scarlatti?
I haven't. I played in recitals much more than I did Couperin before I recorded Couperin, but the decision to record Couperin was actually not mine. I adored doing it, but I was asked by René Martin to do that, and I think he was right, because there were not many.
There's
recordings.
not many recordings of Couperin.
Nowadays, more and more. But when I recorded it, which was really almost 10 years ago, it wasn't that often yet played. And actually, I think it was probably the most sold CD of the ones I did with Mirare, the label of René Martin. So he had a good sense of what should be recorded. But I adore this music. But yeah, Scarlatti I adore as well, and Handel, and I love Baroque in any case. But a bit like the influence of my professor, especially the influence of Alexis. He had such a big, wide adoration for different styles. I mean, Alexis recorded Bach and a beautiful Scarlatti, by the way. But he also played, even wrote himself as a composer, contemporary,
right, he did, didn't he?
Very jazzy kind of music, arrangements, and of course he played 20th century music, etc. So he had this very vast, and he hated the fact that people try to put people in boxes of, he's a specialist of that and that, and he kind of warned me against it, and I did see it later on when I started to perform and record. I remember when I recorded the Chopin mazurkas. Well, it was close to the Chopin year also. 2010 was the 200 years, so I, of course, made lots of concerts of Chopin. Also toured around the world with a few other pianists to do the integral of Chopin works for the 200th birthday. But at the same time, I remember later on when I suggested other programs, they said, no, you are a Chopinist, you should play that. Putting me in a box.
That's hard. You have to get out of
it. I love Chopin, so in a way I didn't resist. But a few years later, when I recorded the Couperin, and that caught more attention, then suddenly they wanted only Baroque, and say even the Chopin programs says, no, you are a Baroquist, like so.
Everybody needs something to hook things.
They need a niche in order to market, and for Alexis it was always very strange, and I totally understand him. He had such a wide interest in music in all styles, and so I try always to alienate myself from these kind of tendencies. I adore Janáček, for example. I have a huge passion for Janáček. I always wanted to record his music. And
well, we'd love to see you back in the recording studio one of these days. I know it's not your favorite thing, but I tell you, it can be fun. So
yeah. So I mean, yeah. So basically, my taste differs. It doesn't mean I play everything, but I love to listen also to composers I don't play. So, So.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time and for coming and sharing all your experiences. And I'm sure you could go on for hours, but it's been really wonderful, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. But I look forward to attending your festivals, hearing you with Christoph and Maria in January, and to continuing our friendship. So thank you so much for coming and being on Berlin Conversations.
Thank you so much. And also, just to mention, I loved absolutely to hear the recordings of your own pieces.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me from you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
As I said, I play always selection of a repertoire which is not that broad, even though I love the music that I love to hear is very broad. So I have a big adoration to listening to other styles and compositions and composers I haven't known before. And when I heard your pieces, it struck a chord.
Well, thank you. That's great. So, kindred spirits, I guess. So, okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's better.
Take care. So, thank you so much for joining me with my incredible guest today. And be sure you look up his CDs and look him up on all the various music platforms where you can find his music. And I look forward to seeing you at the next Berlin Conversations. Take care and have a wonderful day.